For some time I had this unsightly half-finished diorama base in the back of my desk, along with this mysterious toy structure. I think it was some sort of toll booth at some point, but the barrier arm is missing. If anybody knows what this is from, please let me know in the comments, I'm curious. I'm thinking if I combine these two items into one small terrain piece, it could look pretty cool. And if I work with the style the building already has, I could have an interesting industrial structure. This concept drawing has a whole bunch of pipes coming out of the opening. Since the diorama base was originally meant for resin water, which is why it's in the state it's in, I imagine it's a muddy riverbed. So let's call this the Pumphouse. For the first pipe, I wanted to use this cocktail straw. It just so happens to fit perfectly into the holes on the structure. Nice. But how do I make it bend down? First, I should probably attach the building to the base. For this, I used regular old hot glue. After reinserting the straw, I eyeballed roughly where I wanted the bend to be and cut off the excess. We'll come back to this in a second. For the lower pipe, I used some copper wire bent into an interesting pipe shape to see where it would sit. Then I cut the other half of the cocktail straw pipe and put it where it would sit as well. For the connection of the two halves, I used a pair of thin wires. These were cut down and hot glued into each end of the straw. The copper pipe was replaced with a longer one that went all the way into the building via a small drilled hole. For a while I played with various bits of junk to figure out how I could have more pipes or additional details in several different ways. After a little bit, I switched gears and started working on the box at the back of the building. I assume this is some sort of fuse box relating to the electrical wires coming from the structure. This was made from a section of some sort of clothing hanger. I also totally cut my thumb while shaping the sides of the fuse box. Be safe around blades, kids. 2 small holes were cut into the box for some wires to run into later. The box was glued into the back of the building using hot glue, and here's the 2 wires installed. The thicker capped pipe at the front of the facility was made out of a tube of unknown origin and a small screw. These were of course hot glued together and then into place. For the wires, I used wires. And for the one coming out of the opening, a piece of wire with some of the rubberized coating still on it, as a ceramic insulator, which is something I don't really know anything about, but I get the concept. The antenna is a piece of sprue superglued in place. The wire connecting it to the other wires was carefully bent into the correct shape and then painstakingly glued into place. The last thing I did before painting was applying some spackle to the sides to smooth them out. After a coat of black primer, I gave the whole thing a thin layer of brown acrylic to help the paint stick to it a little better later on. While it was still wet on the ground, I added a different brown acrylic, effectively wet blending them right on the surface. The base that the building sits on was painted gray to emulate concrete. I didn't go too in-depth with this concrete, but if you'd like a slightly more involved concrete tutorial, I do have one that I can link in the description below. The building itself got a light tan color for its walls and a flat brown for the trim around the windows and the opening. A few of the pipes got painted silver and bronze, but I wasn't sure what to do for the larger ones. Before I figured it out, I gave the whole thing another layer of brown, this time as a wash. This will help blend everything together and make it look a little bit more used. Some of the rocks sticking out of the mud got highlighted with a light tan and concrete colors of the building. I like to do this to make the ground look a little more interesting. The fuse box and antenna were painted in dark gunmetal. And you can't really tell, but the wires were painted in this color too. Finally, I got back around to painting the other pipes. I decided to go with red because that's the color I had. Technically, this means these pipes are for electrical purposes, at least according to the internet. I didn't know this at the time, so it's less of a pump house and more of a electrical relay station, maybe? I don't know. I think the red looks nice. Here it is fully painted. I thought about giving the resin water a second try, but I may do that in another video. I still haven't successfully worked with resin yet, and I don't really want to ruin this until I know what I'm doing. Let me know what you guys think about this build in the comments, and give it some background lore if you'd like. This is the second scratch build I've done on the channel, and I'll link the first in the description below. I plan on doing some more terrain pieces like this in the future, so subscribe if you'd like to see those. Thank you for watching, have a good rest of your day.